Welcome to Retrograde. This is episode number 50, and today we're going to be discussing Final Fantasy VI. My name is Jack Marshall, and I'm joined today by the man who's always filled with mana juice, Anthony Hobday.
Hello.
The lady whose laugh casts a +4 of deafening, Suzanne Fisher. And the musical bard who's barred from children's playgrounds, James McFadden.
Oh, it's funny because it's true.
Oh,
those were good.
Yep.
Those are good. Well done. I like those.
So, yeah, we're a week late this week, which is a bit of a shame, but it doesn't matter because we're doing 2 in a row, and it's the first time we've ever delayed a week, so that's good.
Is it the first time we've ever done
No,
it?
we've
We
delayed
delayed
a week
it like
before.
a day or two, but never a week.
No, we've done it by a week.
Oh, have we really?
And then just
Oh, dear.
stayed on every alternating week.
How are we still getting listeners? They must be getting well annoyed by now. But
It's only once.
it's only once in 2 years. That's not too
We
bad.
don't owe them anything. We don't owe you.
We owe them a debt of gratitude for listening to our show.
Yeah.
That's true.
But
Yeah, we
nothing
do.
else.
Well, we're doing 2 in a row. So we've got this one this week and one next week. So you only have to have a week to wait, which is good. But yeah, last week we were just all really insanely busy and didn't get a chance.
Yeah, all of
Which
our
is a real
schedules
shame.
imploded.
We were actually doing stuff, which normally we're not doing anything.
That's
Which
true.
is really true. I bought a Wii U.
Yeah, you
you
did.
have-
Whoa, I've pre-ordered it
Oh.
to get Mario Kart 8, and then they've done this thing where you do if you get Mario Kart 8, you get a free game download.
Yeah.
So I'm getting Super Mario Bros. U or something, which I'm
I
quite
hope they
excited
presented
about.
it that way.
£200, not bad. Money in the bank.
Promotion.
Well, it's not money in the bank,
If you get
actually.
Mario Kart 8, then you get a free game.
Yeah, that's how they do it. If you buy Mario Kart, get a free game. So I'm buying it for the free game. That's how it works.
Yeah.
You excited about that?
You're saving money.
Oh, you know,
there,
I've
Jack.
pre-ordered-
Saving money. I am
You're
saving
making
money.
like 30 quid on that.
Just like when I
purchase.
brought Warhammer 40,000k Marine for like £3. Saving money.
Never played it.
Never played it. Still in the wrapper. It's pristine.
You're a keen
Pristine.
businessman.
No, we've pre-ordered Mario Kart 8 as well. What free game do you think you're going to get?
Super Mario Bros. U probably.
Yeah, that's what we're going to get.
It's
as
either
well.
that or Zelda, to be honest. The rest are like Wonderful 101, which is terrible.
It is
Right,
terrible.
Anthony? Right,
I've
Anthony?
heard it's meant to be awful, yeah.
Made by Platinum Games, so it's going to be crafted exclusively from awesomeness. But I can understand why some of you would care about more than just visual explosions in games.
Yeah, that's true.
I just want more of the same. I just want more platforming action from Mario. That'll keep me busy for the rest
Well,
of my life.
I'm gonna buy Super Mario 3D Land as well.
Yes, you need to.
I think that's
It
pretty
is
safe.
amazing.
And then after that-
the replayability is awesome.
And then after that, I've got everything the Wii U has to offer. Apart from maybe Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze thingy.
There's some stuff coming out.
There's a new
Isn't
Xenoblade JRPG coming out.
Yeah,
Pretty relevant.
Yeah, I'm not getting that. I knew
But
what?
Xenoblade Chronicles, I think it was called, was very well received.
Might
so the
get
new one might...
Bayonetta 2 to like satisfy my lust and stuff.
yeah,
Satisfy your lust.
Yeah, my
That's not
urges.
even a-
Keep
That's got
my
naked
urges at
witches in
bay.
it won't keep your urges at bay, it'll increase them. Naked Witches non-stop. Although it's a Nintendo console, so maybe they'll try and tone it down a bit, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we're
I hope
past that
not.
stage.
They should tone it up a little bit. What's people been up to?
Sorry, listeners, you can't see, obviously, because you're listeners. Anthony's just doing some weird noddings and promptings towards Jack, which is quite...
No, the reason I was notioning is because I remember you said to me before, say this and not this, and I can't remember where I was meant to say this or this. It was either what's everyone been up to or what have you been up to,
That's
or
Yeah,
neither.
The podcast is
I'll edit
not...
this bit out, don't worry, I can't actually remember what I was meant to say.
The podcast is not entirely off the cuff. Listeners might be surprised to understand.
Hang on. Do we really want to pull back
on.
this curtain?
Actually, you're going off script, what are you doing?
Anthony, read the lines.
We pre-planned some of this.
Stick to the line, Anthony, says Jack, shocked.
Planned
Looking shocked.
exit scene.
I've got a bit of banter.
Go for it, rock it.
Today I gave my tutor group their Year 11 leavers presents because I've been their form tutor for 5 years now.
Can we try guess what you gave him as a present?
You can if you like.
I'm going to go for rocks, types of rocks.
No,
I'm going to go for your underwear.
that is wrong on so many levels.
I think you gave each of them-
including illegal ones.
You mean
So
like
I'm
it's-
not even going to joke about that.
Do you mean it's
James,
the
your
wrong
guess.
answer?
I think you gave each of them a single magic bean with a different purpose, crafted entirely on the personality of that student.
You're very
so
close.
If someone really likes hockey, their bean when they eat it, it transforms them to some kind of like hockey pro for an hour.
It's very close.
There's this guy, if he likes like go karts, it transforms him into a go kart.
James, Why were your examples hockey and go-karts?
Because what do kids
We were
like these
just
days?
talking. We were just talking about Super Mario
in so
Kart.
many years.
But hockey, like...
I don't know.
I came straight from the old hockey fields to this podcast. The old hockey grounds.
I didn't know you were a hockey head,
They've
James.
been in my family for many
Teenagers
generations.
just sitting around going, what should we do tonight? Hockey or go-karting? Ooh, I don't know. Which one? Hockey, I reckon.
Well, I got this
tonight.
magic bean, so I might as well.
And
Suck it and see.
There's this one kid who loves beans, and so his is just a regular bean. Like a Heinz baked bean, but in
What did
no.
I should have rethought
Yeah,
my interests.
along some good lines.
What did you get from?
I got them all a Mr. Man or Little Miss book, which
that's clever.
represented an aspect of them. And then I made a card for the whole form with their Year 7 picture and their Year 11 picture all tiled on the front. So everyone's faces are all on the front, and wrote inside a personalised message as to why I'd picked that Mr. Man or Little Miss
Who was
for them.
What did you write in Mr. Topsy's?
Didn't give
Like-
out Mr. Topsy.
Wait, are
you're
there
a-
not
you're a
really negative
clumsy
Mr. Men? It's not
figure.
Mr.
There's some, yeah.
Mr. Lazy, Mr. Least Likely to Succeed,
Yeah.
Mr. Will be incarcerated before he's 20, Mr.
there's-
Overdose.
I gave out some negative ones, but only to the ones who I knew would find it amusing. Like the
God,
boy I
blimey.
gave
Mr. Low
the
Self-Esteem.
boy. No, there is that. It's not a Mr. Man. The boy I gave Mr. Lazy to was late to school because he overslept.
Because he's so lazy.
Because he's so lazy. And then he pulled, and I gave him his present, and then he pulled out a book, and he just burst out laughing and showed it off, and he was like, "Way!"
In a really, lazy manner. Like,
The girl I
ha.
gave Little Miss Stubborn to
Oh dear.
found it hilarious as well.
But see, that's always a risky proposition, because I remember once when I was in primary school, I went on one of those like week-long or long weekend like vacation things they did, like to activity centres or whatever.
Residentials, yeah.
Yeah, and we were in the forest or whatever doing stuff, activities, archery, whatever. And at the end of it, everyone... Whoa, it was archery.
That's what you do.
At the end of it, you do archery at these things, Anthony. And at the end of it, they were giving out awards to everyone, like specialised awards. And so there was like most resourceful, like best at doing whatever. You know, they were...
Yeah.
And then when it came to me, it was like, she's handed it to me, and it said best at chopping wood.
Had you
Best
you
at
hadn't
chopping
chopped wood at all?
I don't
had you?
remember chopping wood. I assume I did at some point, or maybe it was some kind of twisted
Yeah.
joke. What does that even mean?
Well, see, the thing is, James, is that
And that's why I'm like I am now.
I've
because-
spent 5 years with these kids, seeing them.
Do any of them chop wood?
No, seeing them
that
every
a
day.
euphemism?
Seeing them every day, every school day
You
for
wish.
5 years. I know these kids really well, so I was able to pick
Okay.
an accurate book for each of them, and they were really pleased. So much so that they showed it off to their friends, and I had other Year 11 students coming up to me going, "Oh, Miss, that was really nice what you did for your form. Our tutor hasn't done anything for us." And I was just like, "Oh, sorry, guys."
We all got straight A's though.
I don't.
Jack's
No, they're in my tutor group. I don't
okay.
teach
Fair
them.
enough.
yeah.
There's a good chance I've told this story on this podcast before.
Oh,
But
fantastic! Tell it again then.
it kind of fits with what James was saying. We once went to camp in Year 9, and we went to this island in the middle of a lake, and the...
Alcatraz.
well, it's more wooded, I suppose, and less of a prison. But
Is it a duck house?
no, it's more wooded and less of a dock house. What's a dock?
Duck
Duck
house.
house.
So you watch
duck?
Don't know what
ducks.
a duck
Like
house
off
is.
the
Wow.
MP's expenses scandal.
Yeah.
Matey Boy paid like £100,000 for this duck house
It's
in
where
the
they keep
middle
all
of
their
his
golden
pond.
ducks.
For the ducks to live in.
It's
Yeah.
a tax
Wow.
break.
Because
No, it
ducks
wasn't.
need houses, apparently.
It was a human island.
Go on.
And the activity on it was to write a play and then perform it for everyone, right? So it was a little skit type, 5 minutes each, whatever. And we were pretty much the only group that put effort into ours. And as a reward, we all got given Mars bars.
Nice.
Okay,
Sweet.
which was pretty awesome.
That's pretty
Then we
cool.
got back to camp, and they had all these Mars bars left over, so they decided to just give them out to everyone.
Oh.
Oh.
And the lesson I learned from that in Year 9 was never put in any effort. And it's worked out pretty well for me so far. So I guess I'm going to thank them, because putting in effort's kind of annoying.
Did anyone do The Tempest? Because if they didn't,
No, you
you're
had to
missing a trick there.
You have to write your own.
Oh,
So if you
it's a shame.
butted out some Shakespeare, they would have kind of called you on it and said,
Well, I would have changed
Jack.
changed like Caliban to like
is
Carrie.
one of your group William Shakespeare? No, you cannot do a Tempest because you did not write this story.
I'm very glad that you let us know that you know what the Tempest is.
That's the
I'll, like, keep it
only
in there.
book I could have. That was the only island book I could think of.
Nice.
Island
I can't think of many other books apart from Treasure Island.
Moreau. Is it Moreau?
Robin
The
Crusoe.
one- No, Island Dr. Moreau, the one with the
Little men.
the human-animal hybrids.
Oh.
Cape of Monte Cristo.
Do you mean the Count of Monte Cristo?
Oh, what's the one with the Cape of?
I don't know.
Cape Fear.
The Cape of Fear? Oh, dear. James,
That was my banter.
James, got any other banter to share?
Yeah,
Anthony, wait, we haven't...
Oh, well, Anthony can wait his turn. I recently got the first volume of the Walking Dead comic book series because I was so enamored with the game. It's really
dark,
good.
isn't it?
Yeah,
It's really dark.
pretty dark. What I like is that it's kind of rocketing through the story because after the first volume, you're like halfway through the second series of the TV show, which is good because the TV show is really boring now that they got rid of Frank Darabont. It's not really worth watching, but the comic book is good.
Spoiler alert.
What?
Spoilers.
He's the director.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not at all familiar with The Walking Dead.
Jesus Christ.
Do you know what I was talking
No,
about?
but Frank Darabont is a famous
He
director.
did the Shawshank Redemption.
I was trying to think
He's
what
done
character
like
he was.
loads
or
of
what.
movies.
I've enjoyed his work thoroughly.
That's why the first series was good
Yeah.
for a while, and then they got rid of it
Yeah.
and it kind of became mediocre. But the comic book's good, so I ordered the big compendium, and I'm going to work my way through that before
Ooh,
my exams,
compendium,
which
I
are
love
like
that
5
word.
days. So I've got to study briefly.
See, now I would have predicted that your banter would have been either one, you were going to show off about how the fact that they've just announced that there are more active Dota 2 players than there are World of Warcraft players now.
Yes,
I figured you were going to do a little dance and
It's
go, my boys, my boys.
monthly active, right? Because
Something like that, I don't know. And think, well, Warcraft's 10 years old as well, so it's a bit unfair
Well, that's
to
not
go,
necessarily a good thing though, because the general Dota player community is a cesspool of cancer. They're not very nice people. So the fact that there are over 7 million of those in the world is quite unsettling.
Sure, there's a few good ones in there.
I've
One or
never
two,
met
one or
James,
two.
James is in there. Do we want to go on to the competition?
Yeah, let's rock into that competition. Woo,
It's the Paul Monahan giveaway.
Yay.
Last episode we were giving away Audio Surf and Beat Hazard Ultra because playing your music became a
And
thing for a little
did
bit.
you see the developer of Beat Hazard Ultra entered the competition? Someone tweeted to him and he said, yeah, you should win that game, it's awesome. Then he entered himself.
Really?
Yep.
I did not notice that at all.
Good.
And,
Well done.
hopefully he didn't win because he's already got a copy of this game.
You might not.
Probably Audio Surf as well, since
Developers get screwed over these days, you know.
at least you get one free copy, surely. It's
Yeah.
your own game. At least a Steam copy, surely, is digital, you know.
I'm going to quickly find out who it is while you're running around and we accidentally give him his own game.
But yeah, we were giving away Audio Surf and Beat Hazard Ultra because they have a theme of playing your own music.
Yeah.
And why not have a theme for every episode? It's getting hard to pick these themes. But the winner of the Paul Monahan giveaway this episode is LXS. So that's 3 letters.
Luxus.
Not, yeah.
Luxus.
I guess it's like Lexus,
They're
but
like
without
off-brand
that.
Mercedes.
Lol.
We're going to send you...
Oh, thank God, no. Yeah, Steve Hunt was the developer of
Steve Holt.
Beat Hazard,
Ah.
and he tweeted us saying, oh yeah, it's a really good game, I hope you win it. And the guy that he was tweeting to, the guy who told him that we were giving away the competition, he just won. Did you say LXS?
LXS, yeah.
Yeah, he just won. Well
Oh, okay,
done.
so there's a little backstory for you. We're giving away that. Or we have given away that.
So sad.
It's not sarcastic.
You went, oh, good for him. Go on.
So, LXS, we're going to contact you on Twitter and send you the code for those games. Next episode, which is in a week this time, so I can
Boom.
actually say next week.
Yeah, you
because I
can,
keep
next
saying that
week.
by accident. Is we're giving away Bit Trip Runner 1 and 2 and Dust Force because both are about moving through things quickly.
Oh.
Nice. That's
so-
a good link.
So we're going to give away those. If you want to win copies of Bit Trip Runner 1 and 2 and Dust Force, we're going to put the competition details on Twitter. Just retweet those and you'll be entered to win.
I can't
So
wait
announce
until the only
winner.
theme
Such-
is the 2 games that we're giving away in the competition. That's how they're linked. So
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to
Or
have to
That'd
wait
be
a
good.
couple
Or
of
they
weeks.
both have the letter A in them.
These are the games
Something
that
like
were
that.
available to gift on Steam. On my account.
The common theme of they
Hey,
were
that's
quite
a
cheap
theme.
this week.
So, yeah, we're going to put that on Twitter. Just retweet that to enter. We'll announce it next episode.
Awesome, blossom. Cool. Let's go into Final Fantasy 6, but before Final Fantasy 6 or 3, depending on where you are. But let's have a brief blurb on the game from our guest, VO, good old Brecky Double K Thomason.
Final Fantasy VI is a role-playing video game developed and published by Square, now Square Enix, and released in 1994 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System as part of the much-loved Final Fantasy series. Set in a fantasy world with a technology level equivalent to that of the Second Industrial Revolution, the game's story focuses on a group of rebels as they seek to overthrow an imperial dictatorship. Released to critical acclaim, Final Fantasy VI was a landmark title for the role-playing genre and is often considered one of the greatest video games of all time. Its Super Nintendo and PlayStation versions have sold about 3.5 million copies worldwide, and the game has seen versions released on the Game Boy Advance, the PlayStation Network, the Wii Virtual Console, and even iOS and Android mobile devices.
Thanks, Brecky. If you have a blog, podcast, website, or whatever, anything you want to promote, get in touch with us on Twitter, and you could be our guest voice over for one of our shows. Now's a good time to mention that Retrograde Show and all other sister podcasts on the Psychon network are sponsored by Tweaked Audio. So if you're thinking about buying some new headphones, head over to tweakedaudio.com, all one word. They've got all shapes and all sizes of headphones. And if you use the promo code Retrograde when purchasing, you'll get 33% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty on your headphones. Damn, yeah. So yeah, check out
Tweaked. Literally insane not to.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, check out
Certifiably.
tweakedaudio.com, all one word.
I'd get you sectioned if I could.
Yeah. Right, Final
For not
Fantasy.
buying headphones.
Not buying these headphones.
Final Fantasy
That's
6
true.
in
That's true.
Japan, Final Fantasy 3 in North America.
I think 6 is generally settled on.
Yeah,
Right?
these
Nobody's
days,
calling
they,
3.
when they re-release it, they call it 6.
It confused me when I came to downloading the game. I was like, what do I want?
Downloading it, Jack.
What do I want it now? I downloaded Final Fantasy 6 on the Android. I got the Android version, which was,
Controversial.
yeah, probably people are going to go, it's not the same thing. But
Because
because it
you're
had
using like touch controls.
yeah, and it had a lot of stuff that I'm guessing wasn't in the game. Like you could just put you could put automatic in the battles, and they just fight for you. Is that in the normal game? I guess not, because I left it on at all times.
Well, as in leaving it on and it took all your
Literally.
turns for you.
Yeah, literally, there's a button in the top left
I
corner.
could be misremembering. I think
This
Well,
is
that's
it.
not even playing the game then. That's just watching a story.
This is the Android and iOS version. There was a button in the top left corner. You just pressed it, and it turned automatic mode on, and then your characters would just fight for you in the battle. So all I did was walk through the grass, just go back left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, fight.
That's
Left, right,
rubbish.
left,
Like
right,
the
left,
start
right,
of
left, right.
Pokemon.
Like every RPG I ever play. Where
Final
I just
Fantasy 12
grind.
did that quite a lot. That game was
Well, they had
basically
gambits,
automated.
but there was still some micromanagement involved. But the Tales games, which listeners to the show will probably know I'm a fan of, they have... You can set each character to automatic or manual, or semi-manual, but that's not... Semi-automatic. But
a
if
gun.
you set all of your characters to automatic, it will just play battles for you. So that's not necessarily a cheat, if you will.
There was a lot of stuff in the Android and iOS version. I think they've purely brought in because gamers have become wimps. No, but you know what I mean? They've made it a little easier to play. And
They may
more-
have shorter attention spans.
more pick up and playable, especially the fact that it's an iOS device, so you might be playing on a bus, you've only got like 2 minutes, and you're trying to play an
Yeah.
epic RPG on a bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think they did a lot of stuff like that. But, it was still the same music, still the same sound, still the same story, sounds all good. Why is 6, James? Why not one of the other much more popular games?
Well,
6 was very popular.
6 is pretty big. I think a lot
6
of
is a
people
big
think
one.
6 was the best one. At least it's certainly the best 2D one.
Why does everyone keep going on about 7?
Well, because I was a child when this game came out, and it was.
But surely there were
3D
children when
and
6
blah,
came
blah.
out.
Yeah, but 6 wasn't
7
as-
was mind-blowing graphically.
because it was like
the first
3D and the
properly
backgrounds.
3D.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
backgrounds were all pre-rendered in 7, which is pretty amazing at the time because it's like a. work
And
of
also,
art.
it was the jump of like SNES to PlayStation, where PlayStation was cool
okay.
and hip, and all the kids were playing PlayStation.
Exactly, yeah.
instead
I
of-
see,
It's probably
okay.
one of the biggest
The
graphical
Final
leaps we'll
Fantasy
ever
game.
see in games from the SNES to PS1 or whatever. 6 was cool, and it has the best Final Fantasy music, except for the Xanarkand theme from 10, which is Terra's theme. It's really good. Basically the opening music to this game is beautiful, and that made me want to play through it. And so yeah, I thought we could.
I don't know.
Terra's-
I play my games with music off. It just bothers me. It just gets
Well,
in
that's
the way.
it. I agree. The music to start with was really nice, and I recognised a bit of it, obviously, because it's sampled in lots of places. Got really annoying after an hour, so I turned the sound off.
Oh, okay.
Because it
I
was
was
quite
just joking,
repetitive.
by the way. But yeah.
Oh, okay. No, it did
What got
get
annoying
annoying.
about it? It was repetitive or what?
Yeah, it was too
You mean
repetitive. I think it's probably because I was stuck in the same bit for quite a while.
It was
Yeah, that
composed
probably
by a guy called Nobuo
But it's still good,
Uematsu,
just I had to
and he's
turn it
kind
off.
of he's regarded as sort of a compositional genius, especially amongst Final Fantasy fans because his music was so
Well, no,
beautiful.
it was great to listen
Widely
to
performed
initially.
by orchestras to
Do you
this
know?
day.
Do you know how many?
No, it is. It's a lovely bit of music, just for an hour on loop.
Do you know how
Like,
many of the
just-
Final Fantasy games he's done out of interest?
Hasn't he done all of them?
I don't. I'm just asking
think
you
so.
out of
I
just
thought
out of
he did
interest
all
to
of them.
find out.
Has he?
Because
He was still. I think he did 14 as well, didn't he? He's still.
I think one of the things that probably stayed consistent in the Final Fantasy series is that they've always had amazing music.
Yeah,
Like-
absolutely.
Well, I was going to say that Terra's theme is used to be my favourite video game music, although after I played all the way through Chrono Trigger, Frog's theme
yeah,
is probably topping it out because it's so fun.
Did you say
Terra's theme is not as fun. It's
that's true.
his name was?
Nobuo Uematsu. It's really hard to. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of O's and U's in it
Nobuo Uematsu.
in a row.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look for a list of
Nobuo Uematsu.
discography. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, he done 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
13.
Yeah, there's a pattern emerging here, guys.
14.
No, he did 14 actually. He didn't do 13 and Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Composition of the main theme.
Yeah.
Wow, he's done like loads
Yeah,
of
he did
stuff. Like
loads of stuff.
absolute Phantasmagoria. Oh, so he did that as well. And he even did the film Advent Children, Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. That film was pretty good. I liked it.
yeah.
Wow,
It's better than the other Final Fantasy film.
that guy's a
Spirit
ledge.
Mm.
So yeah, let's talk about 6 or 3, whichever one you want to go for. You know, just if people don't realise this, it was called 6 in Japan and 3 in North America because 4 and I think 5 or I don't know, a couple of them didn't get released in between. So by the time 6 came out in North America, it was 3. And it gets very confusing.
If I remember correctly, they released 1 and maybe 4 in the West as 1 and 2.
I'll try
and
to
then
find
they
out for you.
released 6 as 3. So they skipped some.
In the West.
Yeah, and then they re-released them as anthologies and on the
So
PS1 and things. So
Right.
So Final Fantasy 4 was released in North America as Final Fantasy 2.
and 1 was 1, right?
Yeah. So they skipped over 2 and 3. And
Yeah,
that's-
because they were the other NES.
and I think then they skipped over 5 as well. Final Fantasy 5 wasn't released, or it was released maybe as like Legend of the Crystals or something. And then Final Fantasy 6 was released in Japan in 1984, but it was tied to Final Fantasy 3 in North America.
Yeah.
Very confusing. But
Well, it would have been more confusing if they'd released 1, 4, and 6 without releasing the other ones in the West.
yeah, although none of them tied together, do they? Apart from this one character, which I'll bring up in my trivia later on in the show. Stay tuned for that.
Well, you mean a character name?
Yeah.
But
Who says we need a soundboard? We've got Jack.
no, they didn't really do sequels until later on with 10 and 10.2 and 13 and 13.2 and 12. And,
I
no,
mean, I can't think of another game where they do sequels within their game. Like, apart from maybe Resident Evil, but like they have like Final Fantasy 13 2. Like Resident, I know kind of like maybe like Resident
only
Evil
the,
5 2 and stuff like that. It's
the Tales games as well do that, but they're obviously also very long running.
because haven't Final
JRPG.
Fantasy 15 Lightning Strikes or something just come out or something like that?
No, that's Final Fantasy 13 X2, isn't it?
13.2.
Is it
No,
is
not
it like
13 something 2?
subtitle
No,
Lightning Strikes?
There was
something like
13
that?
verses, and then they changed that to 15, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a
We've got to
hard.
get onto the marketing department because this conversation shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
So, James, I'm not sure you finished your thought about why you picked this game.
Oh, yeah, basically, it seemed like the most palatable whilst not being the obvious choice.
Right, I mean, that makes sense. It's more of an interesting one to talk about just because it's obviously further back in time, if you will. Like,
Yeah,
a
and
lot more
also-
people remember.
Also, semi-recently, like in the last few years, I've played Final Fantasy VII, and I'm going to put this out there, I hate it. It's a terrible game to play these days, and I didn't want to have to go through the whole bad-mouthing a beloved game again. I thought we could do one that maybe would have a fairer chance because the aging visuals aren't actually that aged.
Yeah, we've covered this in the past. Early 3D ages much worse than late 2D.
Yeah.
Even early 2D. Mainly just because it's more abstract, I suppose. You expect more of Final Fantasy VII, and you remember it more being more visually appealing just because you sort of filled in the gaps in your
Definitely.
mind because there's nothing else to compare it to. So this looks really good to me purely because it's a very well-crafted 2D game.
Yeah, I think it's very visually appealing.
You go, Lizanne.
Okay, we're both going to say something.
You go, Lizanne.
I agree. It is visually appealing. However, what really turns me off is the blue background with the blank text on top. It's like, well, everything else is so visually rich. Why they could have made that look a little bit prettier.
That is kind of a staple now, though. It's sort of a tradition in the
Is
Final
it?
Fantasy games.
Well, that's
this was-
having not played any Final Fantasy ever. Coming to it, I was like, oh, well, they didn't make much effort on the
It's
instruction
very,
bar thing.
it's very blocky, but it's not even a staple of JRPGs. It's a staple of early games in total because nowadays you've got UIs that, in some cases,
Yeah.
like Call of Duty, for example, the UI nowadays disappears if you haven't been shooting.
Of course,
something
of
before.
course.
And with the later Final Fantasy games, it's all transparent backgrounds with just the UI elements transposed on the background.
Yeah.
But things
No, I
like
agree, but they could have made it a little bit nicer, is all I'm
yeah,
saying.
I mean things like Doom had a really blocky UI at the bottom of the screen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But like Link to the Past, that was nicer to look at
until
and
you
have on the
went
screen.
into the menu. That
But
thing was
then it was a bit
What about
annoying to control.
what about
but-
Pokemon?
Yeah, Pokemon
But-
is very similar in terms of the UI, actually.
Oh yeah, no, it is.
It's just
It
not
is.
blue.
No, there's a lot of similarities. But well, that's it. I think that's what it is. It's just I just don't think the blue looks as aesthetically pleasing as something that was clear or.
I agree with you,
plainer.
actually. I think that it's stylistically out of touch with the rest of the game because it's a
Yeah.
sort of a high fantasy, sort of industrial sci-fi, whatever.
I guess
but then
in-
the menu is like it's kind of it doesn't.
It just
fit
seems
in
very
with that.
rudimentary, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like the type of menu you'd have in like a Football Manager or something. It's kind of
It looks like the type of menus I used to have on WAP games about 15
Blimey.
years ago.
yeah.
Dear
I
me.
guess in Pokemon, like the battle background is, well, in the original games was basically white, so the
that's
the white
it.
menu didn't make a difference to that.
Yeah.
But this is a solid colour, and you in most JRPGs, especially Final Fantasy games, you can change the colour of the background to whatever you want it to be, just so you could see your aesthetic better. But it is how they always did it, and I guess they didn't have the idea to do it like differently,
yeah.
Transparent backgrounds or something, just because no one else had done it.
I was impressed with the graphics, though.
I went into this game having not played it before. I've not played any Final Fantasy game as well because I'm not really that bothered about them.
Okay.
So dismissive.
But I went in guns
In comes the
blazing,
hate
ready
mail.
for it, and actually I really liked it. However, I'm a really bad gamer. I've got a bit of a confession to make about it, in the fact that there's something wrong with me in the fact that I know this is a really good game and I really enjoyed it, but because I played Chrono Trigger, and I loved Chrono Trigger on the SNES, like, it's my favourite RPG by miles, I just couldn't help stop trying to compare this to Chrono Trigger and going, oh man, I wish the frog was here, and stuff like that. I wish I could go to Dinosaur Land right now, and things like that. And even though I know this is a great game, I just couldn't help constantly going, Chrono would have kicked his ass a lot quicker. And that's really bad. And I do that with a lot of game genres where I always end up comparing them to almost the first one I played. Like, if I'd played this before Chrono Trigger, I probably would love this a lot more. And I don't know if there's a term for that kind of just.
Well, that's kind of the danger of going back and looking at games like this sort of many years after the fact. We've got so much to compare it to now that it's kind of difficult to be objective about it.
I guess the only issue I was going to raise with that, though, and there's nothing against Final Fantasy doing this, or against, say, something like, was Golden Sun on the SNES? Or like,
that was on the Game Boy Advance.
What was the one that was like the
Golden
Golden
or was it on the
Compass?
Sega?
It was on the Game Boy Advance.
What was the other?
Okay.
What was the other big SNES RPG? There was Chrono Trigger. There was something like Golden something, or like.
Do you mean Secret of Mana?
Oh, Secret of Mana is one I'm thinking of. Sorry, I was miles off. Problem with all of them is that the 2D RPG on the effective era was just kind of, you could almost believe they were mods of each other. They are so similar in their designs, which I guess that was fundamentally what makes an RPG. That
Well, you got the same thing with
it's kind of like
shooters now.
Like when first-person shooters came out, they called them Doom clones because they were
Yeah.
so similar to Doom. It's
Yeah.
like that with RPGs for me on the 2D era, in the fact that they were really similar. They only ever changed like teeny little things, like this one. You had to wait for someone's go to be ready or something like that. It wasn't turn-based sort of thing.
You say teeny little things, but the people who really enjoy JRPGs, they tend to focus a lot on the mechanics behind the battles and things, and the upgrade paths and everything. And those are the things they change that seem teeny to most people, but are actually very fundamental to the people who will buy and play them for 60 hours.
It's like obviously Chrono Trigger was turn-based, if I remember, but people might.
It was sort of.
But this, obviously, you have to wait for your players to attack and things like that. And that's a thing that I was a bit like, and I didn't, that was the certain little things like that I kind of
Chrono
fell over
Trigger
with.
was just as turn-based, but it was more dynamic in its presentation. I was thinking about this today, right? I was comparing them in my head because obviously I played about 2/3 of Final Fantasy VI. I stopped when the no spoilers, but when the world gets destroyed. And then I've seen the entire game because after that point I sort of gave up and watched a Let's Play. This was ages ago though, just so I could see the ending of the game. But I played all the way through Chrono Trigger, and so I was comparing them in my head because obviously they came out at similar times. They presented similar, styles and everything.
Yep.
Chrono Trigger was this mashup of like the best talent in the industry. Basically, it's a dream team they called it, and it was way more quirky in everything it did.
Yeah.
And so if you want something that's like visually interesting and very quirky and quite funny and everything, Chrono Trigger's great. But this is a lot more, Final Fantasy VI is a lot more solid and serious about itself. So I think they present different options to the player. So comparing them to me I enjoyed them both.
I was going to raise... no, I think that's valid. Yeah, because Final Fantasy... Chrono Trigger, you end up in, you post-apocalyptic nuclear wastelands, and then you're ending up in a dinosaur land, and you go to, all these different places. It's pretty mental, to be honest. You go to, the land of time...
This is a... I'm trying to think of a serious novelist. This is a...
Dan Brown.
because he's not a very
Salman Rushdie. Jeffrey Archer.
Well...
Bridget Jones.
Tom Clancy?
This is a Tom Clancy novel, whereas
Brilliant.
Whereas Chrono Trigger is a Terry Pratchett novel.
Where's Wally? Oh, okay.
Where's Wally?
Well, they're fun, right?
The only novel Jack knows.
He's playing.
It took me years to read those books.
They could be very well written, but they offer different things. So to me, it's not about comparing them; it's about enjoying them both for different reasons. But if you only wanted one JRPG, I guess you would compare them.
And just to... I'll go on to Zan.
No, you can finish off.
No, I was going to, because my point's quite big.
Oh, okay then.
That's what she said. Carry on. Sorry, she didn't say that.
Why did she say my point's
exactly.
quite
She
big?
should not have said anything.
I couldn't hear through the tears.
No, I was just going to say that
That doesn't even make any sense.
Go on,
also
Zan.
wrong.
Go on, Zan.
before, obviously having played any Final Fantasy games before or anything. Not really playing any RPGs apart from Pokemon, which don't really count, especially not
It
JRPGs.
counts.
It counts.
Not really.
Pokemon's like a JRPG light.
Yeah.
It's different, but it counts.
Stick of Truth helped me get into this a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Had I not have played Stick of Truth, I probably wouldn't have spent as long playing this game. Because, I mean, yeah, there's similarities to Pokemon, but it's very, very, like James said, it's very light. However, Stick of Truth has all the customization and everything for the battles and everything like that, which helped me get a lot into this. So obviously I prefer Stick of Truth. It's much better and it's modern, but and it's South Park.
I think modern is true, but much better is obviously debatable.
Well, it kind of
it
did
is
combat better in a way because it has the interactive component, doesn't it? It's not just menus. They tried to work in some kind of real-time system.
Right, but that's the
and it
modern
has the
part.
vocal and everything. Anyway, but yeah, I was just Jack's point about saying that he just kept comparing it to Chrono Trigger. Like I kept thinking about South Park. Obviously, thinking South Park was better, but still enjoying that this is where South Park came from, kind of thing. And
There's
it helped.
There's a lot to be said for
It
Stick
helped
of
me
Truth.
keep playing.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for Stick of Truth for taking a very popular IP and introducing players to like JRPG mechanics through that.
Yeah.
Because they didn't, obviously it's Obsidian, so they don't hold back on JRPG stuff or RPG stuff. And they stuck with that, and I think that's good because a lot of people don't really want to approach a 60-hour game with all these mechanics.
Well, that's good.
Like
Stick of Truth was only 15 hours.
It's like a gateway drug.
Yeah, exactly. And it needed to be longer. Because it finished, and I was kind of like, oh, I could have carried on playing this for twice the length. So I'm hoping they're going to bring out a sequel.
I'm glad it had that effect on you because obviously I play a lot of Tales games, so I'm kind of into these 60-hour JRPGs. And any game that helps people get into that genre more, I'm all for.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Jack. Do you want to?
No, go on. You go.
It just that conversation kind of makes me think about when I was playing it, and I was thinking about what I was comparing it to, and it wasn't a similar game at all. I was thinking about. I love the original Devil May Cry, and I love Devil May Cry 3, and I really love Super Meat Boy. And I was those two games popped into my head when I was playing Final Fantasy. I was thinking, why is this where's the connection? And it's like the antithesis to them in terms of gameplay, because the reason those games are so good is because you get an immediacy when you're playing them. There's a certain effect, or there's a certain combo that you're doing, and it's visceral, and it feels weighty in your hands or on your keyboard or whatever. But the Final Fantasy games, and I'm not criticizing them as a whole, just in terms of the gameplay, it's kind of just a way to gate the story, because it's actually, I mean, the actual playing of the game is not fun. I think you would struggle to find many people saying that they love JRPG gameplay, at least the straight up JRPG gameplay you can find in this game. Because it's just navigating menus. I mean, it's vaguely strategic, but even when that sort of grand strategy comes to fruition, you've got this plan and you do it and everything's great and you win, it's still like, it wasn't that satisfying mechanically.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that other games at the time did sort of try and tackle. I mean, even Link to the Past, which has been criticised for its gameplay, is fun to play. It's fun, at least more
you get
fun
the
than-
interaction with the sword
Absolutely.
within the map.
You
don't have to go into a special battle screen.
There's a positional awareness element, a timing element, whereas with this it's pure just sort of rational brain thought process.
Well, that leads very nicely into my next 10-minute monologue.
Oh, cool.
Like you were saying about immediacy, this is basically the reason why, even though I appreciate, like I've tried a lot of Final Fantasy games and I really appreciate how they're constructed, but that's one of the reasons I don't stick with them, unlike I do with Tales games, is because you don't have the immediacy in battle, whereas Tales games are all real-time battle.
Yeah.
So there's a fun to be had for me in the battling, whereas a lot of the fun derived from Final Fantasy battles are for people who want to think strategically, figure out the best strategy and then execute it. And I don't want to do that. I want to see cool effects and have fun and then like go through 1,500 battles very quickly so I can over-level and just break the game over my knee. Whereas a game like this, it takes a lot longer to do that, so it's much harder for me to stick with it. And like Final Fantasy VII is the game I stuck with the longest.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VI is probably the next one. But games like Chrono Trigger made it interesting enough that I stuck with it the entire way through, especially because it was more fun to look at. And obviously Tales games have like a fighting game engine, so they for the battles, so I stick with them all the way through. But so I think it is lacking some of that immediacy you're talking about, and that's why I love Devil May Cry games as well, just because it's more visceral. So I really appreciate how these are made. I just don't ever stick with them just because they eventually lose me.
I agree with you, and they often lose me as well. But then actually a 60-hour game, that's kind of ridiculous, especially when it's purely single player. I mean, nobody has time for that. I don't think a single narrative...
Lots of people have time for that.
A single narrative doesn't take that long unless there's so much padding in there. I mean, the game could be done without any of the random battles and be like a third of the length or whatever.
Well, that's why they put the automatic option in the Android.
Well, yeah,
versions.
I'm sure that is the reason, but I feel like I really enjoyed the game. I like it. I like playing it. I thought it was a good experience because I like the atmosphere that they're creating. I like now the graphics are very retro, and so is the music, and it's a lot of tradition involved in the Final Fantasy games. And so actually going back and playing it made me feel very comfortable, very at home, very familiar. And it was nice to get lost in the world for a little while. And I think that's kind of an underrated concept a lot of the time because it's very... with the tools they had at the time, they've created a very specific and very powerful atmosphere, which is mostly the music. It's certainly not the writing, but it's actually quite a pretty game in every way, and that's rare for something so old, I think.
So I did something in a game that I don't like in JRPGs, which happens all the time to me because I'm rubbish at them.
Did you not use Super Repel?
No, I always do this thing, which and I hate it, and I don't know if there's a term for it. So I'll run through. Sometimes I'll grind, and I'll run through a forest going, leveling up. Otherwise, I couldn't be bothered. And this one, I couldn't be bothered. And I got to the bit where you go to the raft, where you leave the Smuggler's Cove or whatever with Baron, or whatever his name is, and you're on a raft, and it saves your game, which is fine. Then what happens? You turn up, and there's this git, who's like this purple octopus, turns up and goes, yeah, I'm going to mess you up, boy, called like Ultros or something, just casually strolls in with his annoying little face. And the problem is, I was way too weak to beat him. I was completely underpowered. He just came in with one slap of his tentacle and knocked all my people out. So I was like, oh, right, what do I do now? Load my game. I go to like a minute before he turns up. And because I'm on the raft, I couldn't do nothing. He kept moving me, a couple of little battles. And this is the thing, and I don't know what happens with... This is what this term is called in gaming, in like RPGs or JRPGs. When you get... like you've accidentally done a stupid thing and you've quick saved just as you're falling down a pit, but in the world of JRPGs you've saved over your game just before a big boss battle. You can't go back and kind of grind up to face the boss, and you're kind of stuck. And that's exactly what happened to me, and I kind of went,
it's called a point of no return.
Yeah. And modern day games now will go, are you sure you want to do this because it's going to be the end of the game?
A lot of JRPGs now will say this is an important point.
You'd be like, yeah, they go, buddy, do you want to go back there a bit because you might want to face these others? And I couldn't do nothing. I know that's kind of an element of JRPGs, and they don't like people. A lot of JRPG old games would have design mechanics put in, so you couldn't just grind. It would be a steady level process. The enemies would max up a little bit. Yeah. But so I was, and this has happened to me. It happened to me in Chrono Trigger. It happened in this, and it's something that really.
You think you'd have learnt, Jack?
You think I would?
Well, learnt.
I did the bit when you go up the mountain and you're looking for the guy's brother. Problem is, I don't know. Like, when you guys were saying Terra, I was like, I don't know. I named her Willy Face or something.
Willy Face.
I always rename my characters. I never called them by
this
names.
This game has so many playable characters.
It's 14
or party characters,
and I named all of them different things.
Willy Face.
I was running out of ways I could say Willy. Basically,
Willy
I had to get my rude dictionary out.
Willy ears.
One of the great things about that river you mentioned is that if you wanted to break the game over your knee, as I said earlier, you could. There was a fork in the because you were on
you can
the
choose
raft
paths
in the river, and there was a fork in the path where you could go, say, right, I think it is, or left, or whatever. One of the two options.
Brilliant.
And you would just go around in a circle constantly until you chose a different path.
All right.
So if you had a turbo controller back in the day, you could go down that path, go around the circle constantly, and there was a way to set your party up so that it would fight automatically as well. No, so that the A button on turbo would fight the right, choose the right commands.
Hacking back in the day.
Yeah, so you could just level up, leave it on for 8 hours solid, and come back to level, 50 characters.
And I love when that happens. Can you go to a boss, and the boss is like, "You cannot defeat me," and you just do one magic move, and he goes, "Ah, what happened?"
That's the worst feeling, though. That is the worst feeling ever, right? That's not. I mean,
no, that's what I like.
Worst thing ever.
Really, that's literally Hitler. No, I would rather. That's why Dark Souls is such a good game, because I would rather get my ass kicked by a boss and then have to go away and prepare and come back, and then it's like when I beat him. This guy was crazy, and then I still somehow managed to beat him. But if you just waltz in, you're like, then it's kind of, it feels a bit staged.
I got freaked out by these dudes in the caves that you fight who are ninjas. There are enemies in the game that you fight who are full-size human beings who look like they're out of like Shadow Warriors or something.
Yeah.
Then you've got your characters who are these little tiny manga things going, "Yay, we won!" It's like, hold on, wait, there are real-size humans in this world? So what, are we dwarves or something?
I never thought about that.
Hobbitses. And we're just fighting.
Yeah, they used... This is something they fixed in Final Fantasy VII, actually, because in this they use the same sprites for the maps in the overworld as they do in the battle, even though there are other human characters who have different sprites in battle. But in Final Fantasy VII, they switched your character models in battle, so you looked more realistic. So I guess they realised it was a problem.
So it's like the weird how the enemies you fight have a lot more graphical details in the battles than your characters who are like just
It's
little
because they
pixels
don't.
going.
I think it's because they don't move. They don't have a sprite set, whereas your characters do have a sprite set, so they had a memory. In Final Fantasy 7 and 8 and everything, they'd fix that problem.
So are there any when you come to playing a JRPG, are there any particular rules? For example, I always rename my characters. Do you guys all do that, or do you have to stick to the
what?
name?
I have to
You
stick
know
to the
we
You
don't
always
rename
Ash.
characters. None of us
It's
rename
so much
characters.
fun.
We've had this conversation
It's
like
not.
5 times, and every time you use
Exactly.
it,
But it
none of us
always
do.
gets funny.
No, because
When
you
he
just
goes,
make
"Here
them
comes
all willies.
Oh dear, Foreskin's been knocked down. It's brilliant. Love it.
Jack, if you were reading like Hemingway or something, would you go through and at every instance of like a character's name just scribble it out and write Willy face?
See, you can do that. You can order books off Amazon where you can put yourself in the novel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like you can do
Oh,
Pride and Prejudice, but change the names. Instead of Darcy, it could be James, and then instead of Elizabeth, it could be Charlotte.
Could you change any
you do
word
that.
with any word?
No, it's specific words.
There's a
and then they will
whole-
print it out for you as a novel.
You can get the whole of Harry Potter where they've changed the word "one" to "Willy."
It's
the way
Wang, and that's not true.
Pretty sure it's happened. Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is, but no, when you finally say that, because when I'm reading a book, like if I'm reading Game of Thrones or something, and like a character's name comes up or a town that I can't pronounce, I don't bother. I just go like
kidding?
they travelled to Windsor.
But if
Do
you're
you know what?
reading,
That
if you're reading the
explains
book,
so
you don't
much.
even have to. You don't have to pronounce it if you're
I
reading the
know.
book because you're reading it in your mind.
No, but then
You
if
don't have
someone
to
goes
say
to
it
me, you
out
join
loud.
that book, goes, oh yeah, Captain is doing really well, isn't he? Like, I don't care. I'm not going to try and name your character.
I
Just
sometimes
don't
have to
name
take a
them weird
while
things.
to look at the name I've been reading for the last 6 hours and try to pronounce it if I need to say it out loud.
Some books, like when I was reading Dune, I had to have like a little book next to me, a notebook to write down what the hell the characters did. And I was like, hold on, who's this? Let's go back. Oh, right, she's his mum. It's like,
He went back one page there, just so everyone knows.
It's a lot
The
of
gesture, he went back
characters.
one
He met
page.
his mum.
oh, that's his
Well,
mum.
Speaking of literature, I was thinking earlier about this game and other games like it in the JRPG genre and what they brought to the table when they were first released. Because obviously Final Fantasy 1 came out and was quite, well, Dragon Quest before it, but those games were quite fundamentally different because they were huge. And I was wondering if there are any other genres or games that did stories this big at this time. Because
Mario Kart? carry on, sorry.
Yeah, we discussed the story for a long time in our first episode, which you can listen to now because they're all available online. But I realised that basically what JRPGs provided back then, more than anything, was a story. Because now we have first-person shooters, which are the dumbest of all the games. Even though I really enjoy them, they're dumb in terms of like you can enjoy them by just staring at the screen.
They're not intellectually challenging.
No, but they
How
still
dare
like.
you.
But they're stimulating, but they're not intellectually stimulating.
Or emotionally stimulating.
Well, no, they are that.
I've cried.
Well,
Rage quits.
I suppose in
I
terms
cried
of
at Doom.
anger.
And not forgetting, of course, that boy that killed his teacher. He played video games, and it's all
Oh
their
yeah, that
fault.
was because of Dark Souls.
It was because
Yeah.
of Dark Souls, yeah.
But
Not because he was
games-
mental.
Games.
It's not because he was insane.
It's because of the games, Jack.
But even the most.
Games.
Yeah, I did do that a minute ago, didn't I?
So you did. I did it funny
Okay,
though.
but
Sorry,
even the
Anthony.
most
Go on, Anthony.
even the most sugary sweet of games like Call of Duty, like really over-the-top first-person shooters, have like a crazy story these days that's quite epic and involved. You know, they have all these like cutscenes and they tell you things over the loading screens and things.
Yeah.
So there's something you're meant to know about what's going on around you, whereas in Doom you didn't really care. But in games like this is when games mostly didn't have a story, and if they did, it was put in the manual and you could read it if you wanted to, but you didn't need to, because jumping on enemies' heads was still quite interesting if you didn't have a
That's
reason.
pretty much as far as the story goes, even today, though.
Right, but in this, like, this had a very long story, and you basically had to pay attention to know why the hell anything was happening. So I'm wondering
Yeah.
if any other games provided that story fix at this time.
Well, we did
because-
Hitchhiker's Guide
Zeldas.
to the Galaxy last week.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's true. Text-based
Text-based adventure games, I guess, maybe.
were very story-heavy. But I don't really...
Zelda games, probably not as story heavy, but they
Yeah, that's
were
true.
story driven.
I guess it straddled the... Like, adventure games sort of straddled the gap between JRPGs
Yeah.
and other games.
Also, the Zelda
And
games kind of had
platformers, in a
they
way.
had more of a mythology, whereas this has a specific
Yeah.
narrative. Like, oh,
Yeah.
so and so.
yeah, there wasn't much of a narrative. And text-based adventures, like, you didn't get those on the consoles in the first place, obviously. 'cause
Well,
they-
it's why they call them role-playing games, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, we think of RPGs and we think of stats, leveling up, sort of mages, warriors, whatever. But actually, I'm guessing that the main introduction of that word was because you were meant to be so involved with the story. You're role-playing, like that's
Yeah.
who you are in the story. Which
like
I think
you-
they had to make that distinction because games were up until that point so story-light.
Yeah, I guess what my major point is that nowadays we have stories in even the most pick up and play of games. Back then, this is something that JRPGs really brought to the table, was a long story, an enjoyable story. Mm-hmm. And it may not have been the best written, but then there was nothing else that was well written in the industry.
But the thing is, if they were so serious about telling a story, why did they give you the ability to name your characters then? Why not just say, this is
to make it more personable, because then you can call... The idea is that you're meant to call your character after yourself,
then
not
you're actually
Willy.
role-playing.
Yeah.
Then you're more role-playing.
I mean, I guess that
and your
makes
mates.
sense,
Yeah,
and you name
friends.
after,
It's like worms. You can label your own worms in the
and
original
like,
worms.
if there's a girl in the game, you name her after your crush.
Of course.
And then she runs off with one of the other guys.
In like quite a few JRPGs, they don't.
I kill her before she does that, Jack.
In quite a few JRPGs, they don't let you name your characters purely because I think the author of the story wanted to have that.
Well, it's got to the point where even in games like Zelda, you can still name your character. Like, what do you want to call him? It's like, he's Link now. He's too well. It's like saying Mario. What do you want to call him?
I always rename him Zelda. No, I don't. I don't. No hate mail.
You call Zelda Link.
No,
That'd
you
be
do
good.
that. But no, that's just a thing.
I guess it's a cheap way of making you associate with a character more because he's named after you.
Yeah.
Like if I read a book about a lead character called Jack, I'd be like, oh.
Yeah.
I read either a survey or a poll or something. No, it was just a study. It was like something.
It's just something on the wall.
There was
Something on the internet.
There was some information.
It's written on the bathroom toilet.
Someone got some information together, and apparently the most common leading name for men in action films, books, whatever, is Jack.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. The amount of films I've watched. Jack Reacher, Jack
as
Carver.
dirt.
Yeah. You
That's
do strike me
two.
as an action star.
Jack
because
Sparrow.
of that association, Jack.
Jack.
Something about it. Something
From
like
films.
I looked up the other day why it's called the Jack on the playing cards as well, because it used to be the knave and it used to be a K and an N, and when they started doing fanning cards, the K would obviously, the N would sometimes get covered up and people would think it was a king, so the peasants renamed the card Jack, and the royals who used to play by just laying the cards down on the table started also spreading them in their hand, and now we're like, yeah, it's much more sense to have a Jack, and that's why, because Jack was like a pikey name in the 16th century England,
Common name.
in the cobblers. But yeah, sorry, that's what I do at work, by the way, guys. I just look up my name and look up origins. Things like
Fair
that.
enough.
Yeah,
Fair
it's a fun
enough.
name.
Something else that's from pop culture that I quite enjoyed. I suddenly got a few more jokes from the episode of Community where they go into the game. You know, that Piers' dad makes him play, and Abed meets Hilda, and it's all the menus and everything. And the style of the characters, not the artwork. The artwork was different for the game from the artwork for this game, but the sprites, the individual characters were very similar to the sprites for this. And,
that was borrowing heavily from this whole genre.
Exactly, yeah. And obviously I was aware that it came from somewhere, but it was nice to be like, oh, it's exactly this one. Oh, that's cool. So that was nice, and watch Community.
It's interesting to say that because I'm going to make a little claim that I think is quite.
I'm excited.
Wait, are you thanked on this
solid.
game as well for doing
No,
nothing?
I'm going to say this. I think Final Fantasy is the biggest franchise within gaming that outside of gaming is still relatively unknown. Like, my mum and dad would not know Final Fantasy. They'd know Mario, they'd know Master Chief, they'd know Sonic, they'd know, like, they'd go,
Master
World of
Chief?
Warcraft, that's pretty naughty. But Final Fantasy, they wouldn't know Final
I
Fantasy.
wouldn't know.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
because there's not a character that runs all the way through, but when you consider there's been 15 Final Fantasy games, I still, apart from, okay, there's been a couple of films, but I think relatively outside of gaming, most people wouldn't really know
But it's a lot
Final
bigger.
Fantasy.
Yeah, but that's
in
true of
Japan.
loads of stuff.
I think maybe from a Western perspective, it's pretty unknown. But if you were in Japan, you could be saying the same thing about, I don't know, Skyrim or something.
Like, I think if you got non-gamers to take a quiz, now like, right, which one of these are games, which one of these are films, which one of these are books, and you have things like Resident Evil, Final Fantasy, other games on there, they probably go, ooh, Final Fantasy, I reckon that's a book, maybe?
It's also because they're really impenetrable. Like other games like Mario, whatever, anyone can play that. But this, you have to have a strategy going in. Even if you play games for your entire life, this can still put you off because it's so complex. So I guess it's just not.
Well, I wonder
it never
if-
really achieved that much mainstream appeal.
I wonder if it's because there's no poster boy for Final Fantasy, apart from maybe
I think-
Cloud.
I was going to say, I think that's a good point you made about no running character, or at least no running, an actual person. Not because obviously they have running names, but that's sort of a Easter egg. But the fact that they've got no running character that the series can sort of put forward, like you say, as a poster boy. Really, what Final Fantasy is known for are its mechanics. And that's the sort of thing that's only reserved for people who are
I
really
guess those
enthusiastic.
are, those are known, I guess.
It's harder
Yeah.
to communicate immediately.
So, obviously,
They come up in pop culture
the parents
a lot.
of children aren't going to be interested in the mechanics of Final Fantasy, but they might be interested in the mascot if it had one. Moogle, I suppose, is the mascot of Final Fantasy, but even they don't push that much. Interesting point.
I was also thinking about the bit where the castle sinks in the sand. I was like, that's awesome. What a good idea. Then I actually stopped and thought about it and thought, what a terrible idea. Making a castle sink into the sand. You'd be in the castle thinking, oh, brilliant.
You shut the windows.
No sunlight now. Sand coming in from every entrance.
It's also not very realistic that it can move through the ground, because that would take some serious machinery.
And I'm pretty sure, like, if you deprive yourself of sunlight for that long, like, if I'm playing the game for 60 hours, they've probably been underground for like 40 years. They're like, oh my god, we're all dying down here. How do we get food?
That's a very good point, Jack.
Just saying. And they're riding
That's
giant
a very good
birds.
point.
They probably like nip up to the surface and grab an elk or something and just like nip back down.
Maybe a wizard did it.
They do have magic. No, they don't. That's the whole point of the story. There's no magic. So they don't even have magic to get food and sunlight inside.
Well, it's set in like a steampunk
Yeah,
era.
I really like the way that they've brought technology into it, because obviously this type of game historically has always been very much about the dragons and the dungeons and the combination of the two. But I like that the Final Fantasy sort of atmosphere is shifted, especially with 7, but this one as well, where it's kind of more industrial in theme.
Final Fantasy 7 moved a lot more towards the industrial side, whereas this, I mean, until you got outside into the big wide world.
Well, yeah, but it's a cool combo as well. It's nice.
It served them pretty well. They keep using it, so
It's kind of what made Earthbound so rare. The fact it was set in like a modern time little boy's house. There was no kind of...
I love games set there.
Yeah, like... Do you know what I mean?
It's like one of my top 5 settings.
There was no fantastical element to it. It was just a boy in a house who saw an alien crash or whatever.
no fantastical element, alien crash.
Just happens to me every weekend.
Your life is incredible, Jack. It's because you're an action hero.
Do we have anything to say about the story? I mean, we've talked a lot about the story, and yet we haven't actually said much about the story and how
It's
it is.
not really very good. I mean, the atmosphere is great, but it's quite contrived.
I think Chrono Trigger's story was better purely because it was easier to become invested in, because even though I've played most of Final Fantasy VI, I can't tell you many of the high points of the story, like the set pieces. The one I remember most is the opera scene, where one of them has to fill in for an opera singer, or both of them have to fill in for opera singers, and they have this sort of love song scene, and it's quite well crafted for a SNES game, because they're standing there singing, and they use the music to replace the voices, because obviously they didn't have voices.
Yeah.
And so it's quite a powerful scene. But, I mean, the story in something like Chrono Trigger is much more enjoyable, and therefore, for me, much more enjoyable, and therefore easy to remember.
I liked her whole, like, brainwashed at the start, killing good people, and then suddenly she gets, oh my god, my pal, which I think that must...
The amnesia at the start of the story.
Oh, I've never seen that
never
before.
been done
I've never seen that in a film. I was pretty impressed. It's like, oh, no, but it's good. It sets
What
up,
a hook!
It sets up the enemy that someone's been brainwashing you the whole time, and now you've got to get back at them, but you don't actually know who the enemy is yet. It's good, I like that. It's dark, layered.
Cerebral.
Yeah, layered.
Although it might be that back when this was released, that was quite a fresh idea, and we're just looking back on all the JRPGs who have used amnesia at the start of the game.
Amnesia at the start is a well-known trope. It's everywhere. It's in films, telly, books.
When
Shakespeare did it. No, he didn't.
When did Planescape Torment come out? Do any of you guys know?
When the what, sorry?
Planescape Torment.
Oh, what was that, 99?
Oh, okay, so that was quite a way after this then. That's the biggest amnesia game that I know of.
Hold on.
But PC RPGs, no one cares about those.
I actually can't think of another game where there's amnesia in it.
There are so many.
Yeah, it's beyond it's ridiculous.
Doesn't matter anyway. Let's go into the trivia. Unless anyone else has anything they'd like to say about Final Fantasy VI.
It's good and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite charming. It's more charming than the newer ones because there's something childlike about it. I don't know if it's because it's retro and now I identify my childhood with these games, or if it's literally just the visuals are warmer and more appealing. But the recent games, A, haven't been as good, and B, there's something a bit sterile about them. They feel a little scary and far away, whereas this is quite, I don't know, it feels like...
tangible.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, because games that try to take themselves seriously in the 16-bit era, I guess, are still more childlike than games that try to take themselves seriously now, just because of the graphics.
Yeah. And they literally look like children.
Yeah, and the way that they make the... Even that guy with a beard looks like a child. We're watching the game being played on a TV, by the way.
Stop looking out the window.
I thought you were looking at me, yeah.
So that is a good point, because now they're still trying to take themselves seriously, but they're obviously putting more effort into the graphics. They're more photorealistic, even though they're not photorealistic. So that's kind of an interesting point. But yeah, maybe trivia.
Terra's name in the Japanese version is Tina. Her name was changed because most of the playtesters hated it and because it was a common name in the US.
Her name is Tina.
Her name was Tina in the Japanese
that's
version,
terrible.
but the US playtesters hated it because they were like,
I'm not
Tina,
sure that's
Tina.
true.
I thought they went with Terra because it's like a link to the natural sort of imagery, like
you not-
cloud and lightning and whatever.
Do I
Yeah,
check? Do
well,
I check my
Terra is-
sources?
isn't
No, I
Latin
do
for
not. I
Earth
just
or
go on
something?
to
Yeah, it is.
I go on to Dave's FinalFantasy6.com page that was made in like '97.
Do you not mean that they
HTML.
changed the name from Japanese to Tina for the Western release?
Terra's,
while playtesting?
Terra's name in the Japanese version is Tina. Maybe it still is. I'll have to actually check that up, research. But
Because I feel like I read about this and it wasn't Tina.
but the
That's what I
playtest-
remember that.
I feel like
Playtesters-
trivia's falling apart a bit.
I don't know what to think.
the original Japanese name of the Esper Crusader was Jihad. Obviously, it was renamed due to censorship.
Jihad and Tina.
A little bit of fun facts from oneup.com is that someone named Sid, C-I-D, is in every game of Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
A character called Sid.
Yeah.
Another little bit of it I didn't know. Secret of Mana and Vagrant stories are Final Fantasy side stories, whereas Final Fantasy Mystic Quest actually isn't. So the only hint of Secret of Mana's lineage is the way that Moogles appear as a status condition. But it's true, Secret of Mana is a sequel to Final Fantasy Adventures, the US version of Seiken Densetsu, whose Japanese subtitle was Final Fantasy Gaiden.
Like Seiken Dentetsu or something.
Final Fantasy, the original design documents and stuff are all based on Dungeons & Dragons, which is obviously pretty obvious, but still, you forget that Dungeons & Dragons kind of influenced the whole RPG stuff. And Final Fantasy VI features 14 permanent playable characters, the most of any game in the Final Fantasy series, all of which could be named, all of which are named Rufines.
How many could you play at one time?
3 or 4, I think.
4.
4, yeah. And that is all my trivia, because Final Fantasy trivia is terrifying, and there were pages and pages of it, and I couldn't be bothered.
There's the kind of the biggest Final Fantasy trivia.
Oh, all right,
is,
all right, all right. All right,
well,
play it
you've
down.
obviously proved yourself to be incapable when it comes to trivia, Jack.
Go on
So
then.
I thought
Jack's very capable.
Go on.
Anywho's, there's that whole story about they called it Final Fantasy because their company, their dev studio, was in dire straits when it came to money, and this was their last big hurrah, and it was going to be the last game they ever made. Blah blah blah. So Final Fantasy, literally the game they wanted to make, their Final Fantasy, and now we're on number like 14,
15.
15 soon.
My trivia says it's
Pretty
because they
lucky.
were sponsored by Fanta, so they had to get the word Fanta in there somewhere. That makes more sense to me.
Oh no, that's what I was thinking. of, actually.
Correct pronunciation is Final
Here's some
Fantasy.
trivia about Fanta.
Sorry.
Trivia about Fanta if you want some.
Go on, then it was. You want
it's
to name
been a
this
7
because something
up.
to do with Nazi Germany or
Yes.
something, isn't it? Always come back to Nazi Germany.
Yeah, no,
with
they
you.
weren't allowed Coke.
It wasn't invented specifically for the Nazis as a political faction, but it was invented for Nazi Germany because the Coca-Cola
Coca-
factories couldn't get the ingredients they needed to make Coke in wartime.
No.
Yeah, that's it. You look it up again because I thought it was different. Look it up again. And
No.
well, no, you might be saying that because they didn't want to sell Coke to
Yeah.
Nazis, but I'm pretty sure it's because they
Well,
couldn't.
they
get
don't want to
the-
be seen trading with Nazi Germany because they're an American company.
Yeah,
and
but
they
they
can't
didn't-
be trading with the enemy in a war.
Oh, right.
That's
I
what I
see.
originally thought, but I looked it up again and I thought it
Oh,
was
okay.
because they couldn't get the ingredients. Because I don't think Coca-Cola cares if they sell it to Nazis, to be honest. They just
Well,
want the money.
yeah,
God
that's true.
blimey. Get the
Sweet
Coca-Cola
moolah.
lawyers. Coca-Cola lawyers are going to be
Second
on the
most
phone.
recognised word in the world is Coca-Cola.
What's the first?
Okay.
Okay, nice.
And yeah, so they, the guy who was running the whole show over there in Nazi Germany invented Fanta because he could get the ingredients for it.
What
'Cause it
about
was
7 Up?
orange.
Tell me how 7 Up happened.
I don't know.
Sprite.
Sprite, I think Sprite was for rapists.
No.
Lilt.
Children, stop listening.
Was Lil
Children
when
listen to
someone
this.
got a pineapple and just drank the juice from it, and that was what Lil was?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
They should be fizzy.
Lil.
Anyway,
Trivia closed.
Coca-Cola was started as furniture polisher.
Furniture pulp.
Furniture
No, it
polisher.
didn't.
And it had
Furnishing-
cocaine in it in its first kind of
Yeah.
not
concoction.
intentionally.
Trace amounts.
Of course it was intention. They didn't go, whoops, put loads of cocaine in this, didn't we?
No, they used coca leaves to flavour it, and
Yeah.
it had
Oh.
cocaine in the leaves. Or what
fair
they
enough.
used to make cocaine.
Yeah.
You didn't dump a load of cocaine into Coca-Cola.
That's what I thought.
Add a bit of this. No,
That's what makes the bubbles.
Anyway, we've gotten off trivia about Final Fantasy VI.
Wait, I
want
want
to
to
know-
know.
trivia about
I want to
Coke.
know. Was it an
Oh,
active
dear.
amount? Like, was anyone actually getting?
No,
any kind
originally, it still
Gave
has...
you a little buzz, but you didn't get high.
I'm guessing it wasn't prepared in the right way to give it,
Okay.
properly cocaine level effects. But look it up, because...
They put caffeine. They added once they realised
Look it up,
they took
kids.
cocaine out, and they put caffeine in
Yeah.
to give the same effect.
So,
Blimey. Well, there you go. There's some trivia about Coca-Cola for you. Yeah, we get into the retrograde part of the show. James, you chose it. How are we doing this? You always forget, didn't you?
We are
I was gonna say-
going.
don't say fizzy drinks because we've actually
Scarborough Fair.
we've done fizzy drinks already, so you can't do that.
types of fantasy.
Oh God.
Oh, hello.
Are we talking about like
no.
sexual fantasy?
Types
Oh, there we
of
go. There it is.
Let me go
I
get my
knew
list.
it. What do you mean by a type of fantasy?
All I'm going to tell you, Lisanne, is that today we are grading this game based on types of fantasy.
I would compare this to swimming in a swimming pool of custard as a fantasy. Really fun, but because Chrono Trigger, I'd rather be swimming in a pool of jelly.
You would drown in a pool of jelly.
Custard would be fun, but I'd always be wishing for jelly.
You'd drown, though. You'd sink to the bottom and not be able to get
Well,
back
it's not
up.
that deep. You can walk on custard and jelly, I think.
No, you can walk on
You
corn-based
can-
custard, but not regular custard.
Good God.
Well, you could walk on British jelly, but not on American jelly.
An African jelly.
That must
well,
have been a
you'd
really
sink right through
boring
that 'cause
episode of
it doesn't exist.
Mythbusters.
Well, no, because American jelly is just bad jam, whereas our jelly is actual wibble wobble on a plate jelly.
Bad
We've just
jam.
lost our sponsorship of American jelly there. Brilliant.
You mean
called
Jello?
It's always room for jello.
We're getting the name wrong.
Anyway, my
Sponsorship
fantasy
anyway.
would be I'd like to, in this game, if it was a fantasy for me, it'd be swimming in a swimming pool full of custard. Even though I'd love it, I'd be deep down wishing it was jelly, like Chrono Trigger.
Wouldn't you prefer to walk on the custard? 'Cause that's
No,
cooler,
no, I
you
wanna
don't get
swim in
messy. You're going to get really messy, though.
Well, I'll have a shower afterwards.
Could you swim through
I'm not
custard?
having
You
a
might
swimming pool full of
drown.
custard
I'm
thinking I'm
worried
gonna
about
get a
you
bit dirty
drowning in
doing
all of
this.
these substances.
I'm not
Like, that's
drowning in
not
custard, I'm not an
What
idiot.
if you absorb so much custard through your skin that you die?
Oh, I don't think that happens. I don't know. I'll put my hand in a bowl.
Osmosis.
I'll put my hand in a bowl of custard tonight and see what happens.
Okay.
Make
Make sure it's warm.
Yeah, make sure it's cold. Something's wrong.
I would liken this to a fantasy of a never-ending flying bus ride. Quite cool, pretty long.
Quite cool.
Yeah, it's all right. But, you're on a bus, so it's not that great. You prefer your
And
own
it
never-ending
never
flying
ends.
car ride. And it never ends because it's just really inexplicably long. When it really doesn't need
Here
to be.
he is on the screen now playing the game.
Oh, there's your
Old
purple-
Gimp Boy the octopus just rocked up. Look at him. That little git. I was on him for about 2 hours trying to get past that
He has
stupid
a
octopus.
funny cameo later there.
He's like, carry
So
on.
yeah,
Go on,
that's
Lisanne, sorry.
what
Okay.
I am
Flying
likening
bus.
it to.
Most people would think that'd be quite incredible because buses don't usually fly.
No, but it'd be better if it was like a unicorn or a car or something.
See, I think that's a problem though, because if
Yeah.
I was on a flying bus, my thoughts wouldn't be with what might be better than this. My thoughts would be with this is highly unusual.
or a plane.
See,
I
I,
love
know
this
you're
game.
actually a pessimist, so you wouldn't. be
Not on a
thinking
flying
that.
bus, I wouldn't be. That's pretty cool stuff.
Maybe that's the problem.
Anthony?
Right, okay, done.
It's not that far off a plane, though, is it? Really? I mean, a plane is just a flying bus.
No, specifically a bus, though. She didn't say a large plane.
Just stick wings on a plane.
A flying plane isn't magical.
They do have wheels already.
Well, good ones do. But Anthony,
Some of them have floats because they land
Land
on
on
the water.
water.
Yeah, water planes. I would liken this to a fantasy in which 14 people try to save the world and then fail and then try again and succeed.
Jesus.
okay.
No, Jesus had 12 disciples. There are only 13 of them, not 14.
You're so literal.
No, because
Anthony.
12 disciples, Jesus and Jesus' dog, Buddy. That's
Jesus had a dog called Buddy.
that's 14.
Did he?
He played
I
bass.
missed Buddy.
He brought him his carpenter's tools when he
played-
needed. Buddy, get me a screwdriver. They had screwdrivers back then.
Oh, did they? They had metalwork. Oh, that's
And
good.
he played baseball as well, buddy. He loved a
Oh,
bit of
did he?
baseball. Yeah, he
Jesus
did.
Christ.
What
How
breed
does a dog
was
play
he?
baseball, though?
It was a golden
Go watch
retriever.
Buddy.
He was a golden retriever. Excellent.
Golden because he's heavenly and
He doesn't
retriever
have
Of
his
course,
jaw strength.
because he brought the tools.
tools. Yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing.
but no. Yeah, that's my answer. It's like a fantasy in which 14 people save the world.
When you started with 14 people, I was like, where's he going with this? What's
Then
he
you
going to
found
what's he
out and
hinting
you're like,
at?
oh.
No, I was
Thank
just
God.
no, I was literally
I
describing.
was wondering
the
what
game.
path you were going down. James?
The one which lets me level up endlessly.
I would describe playing this game as in my fantasy. I'm playing Final Fantasy VI, but I have next to me an autographed picture of Jennifer Lawrence
Oh.
because it's slightly better than I thought it would be.
I honestly don't see an autographed picture of Jennifer Lawrence sitting next to you making any situation better.
It's slightly better, very slightly, because then I have that. I don't have that now. I think it would be alright. I mean, I'm not big on autographs anyway, but I think it would be okay to have. I mean, at the very worst, I could sell it on eBay, which would then give me slightly more money than I have now, which would in turn be a better situation.
I'm not like a huge fan or anything. I don't go crazy over her, but I'd prefer to have an autographed Jennifer Lawrence sitting next to me.
No,
At least
because
she'd be able to
that-
provide some interaction.
Yes, and I would rather
So
have
she's
that.
autographed herself.
Yeah, if she has to be autographed.
So when
then yeah.
like someone said to her, "Can I get an autograph?" She went, "All right, where do you want it on here?"
James
Just
said
autographed
autographed.
herself.
Yes, but listen, right? What you don't seem to understand is that if that were the case, then that fantasy would be very good, which playing this game wasn't. So that's not a fair review, is it? That
But she'd be able to like do some banter with you, and you'd be able to talk to her while you're playing.
yeah, so that
That'd be
might be
quite fun.
relevant to the game, but it's certainly not an accurate review because that would be the best moment of my life if Jennifer Lawrence was talking to me about Final Fantasy VI.
She'd say
Did
something
you-
like, "This is my favourite Final Fantasy," and you'd be like, "I'm not so keen on it, to be honest, Jennifer." Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Did you see the awkward Avril Lavigne photos that
Yeah.
were on Reddit?
Yeah,
the
but
other
then
day?
I
I
read
remember.
that she was assaulted or something, and everyone's on her side again now.
Oh, okay.
No,
Oh,
I
I
didn't
didn't
know
read
that.
that bit. I just
I was-
saw the awkward photos and laughed.
I was going to say I'm more of an Emma Stone man, so an
Emma
autographed
Stone
Emma
looks
Stone.
very average, so I don't think that's a good idea for you to be having, Jack. She's like when someone.
She's gonna beat you up. She
She's
is
like,
tough.
Emma Stone is very pretty,
That'd
but
be my
she's pretty in
fantasy.
a way that is like she blends into stuff so much. I can't even remember what she looks like because she looks so like everyone put together.
Have you
Whereas
seen
Jennifer
the-
Lawrence
have
is
you
very
seen The Help?
distinct. She's
The Help?
I've seen that.
I didn't even know it was about racism. I was too busy watching Emma Stone.
She was the one that likes cooking, right?
She's Spider-Man. That's all right in it. Didn't even know Spider-Man was in it. I was just watching Emma Stone. It might as well have been called The Amazing Emma Stone for all I cared.
Andrew Garfield was pretty cool, man. He was in The Social Network. That film's good.
You should watch Crazy Stupid Love because then you got Ryan Gosling getting with Emma Stone, and that is good.
Oh, so it's basically just me and Emma Stone getting together then.
My review.
Let's not
Yes,
laugh,
Jack.
Jesus
Yes,
laugh,
it is.
let's not laugh too hard.
Right.
Listeners can't see me. For all they know, that's what I could look like.
Yeah.
could
My
be
review
wrong.
of Emma Stone visually is like looking at a
Hashtag
stone.
Jack is Ryan
because
Gosling.
if you go on a beach and you look at a stone and then you blink, you don't know where that stone is anymore. And that's like Emma Stone in a crowd.
Brilliant.
Because you lose track of her. Anyway.
So there you go, Final Fantasy VI. So, I think that's probably the most surreal one we've done. So we had a swimming pool full of custard, playing the game, flying school bus, and a side picture of
No, my
Jennifer
fantasy
Lawrence.
was playing Final Fantasy VI with a picture signed by Jennifer Lawrence of Jennifer Lawrence next to me. That is in my possession. It's not just there. I own it.
Yeah, so make of that what you will, listeners. And yeah, so thank you for listening. And you can find all information and all links regarding this podcast, as well as all our other sister podcasts at psycon.net. So make sure to check it out. And just a reminder again that the Retrograde podcast is hosted on the Psycon Network. So head over to psycon.tv to become a patron for our show and support the network. And we'll make more episodes. Yay! We're going to be back in 1 week.
1 week.
1 week, you lucky gits. It's Christmas for you guys because we're going to be playing Super Smash Brothers Melee.
You lucky gits! What are you doing? You old man!
You lucky gits. Because we're going to be playing Super Smash Brothers Melee for the GameCube, which I know is going to be a fan favourite for a lot of people. It's going to be a good episode.
And it's our 2-year anniversary, isn't it?
Well, we didn't even mention this is the 50th episode.
Oh, wait, this was the 50th episode?
This was 50. This is the big 50. I know, we didn't even bring that up.
I would have put in some effort.
I know, I would have got dressed up.
Or dressed, even.
Or dressed even, yeah, sorry
Good
about
idea,
that.
Jack. You knew we were
awkward.
coming over.
Or you could really dress up as your voice. I would have dressed up.
Oh, we should have done that. Just 1 week, done a very fancy episode this week, guys.
We would not have been able to keep it
Pour
up.
yourself a cognac and put your feet up. This is going to be
Oh, that was
great.
totally different. Do that again.
It sounds like Tony Blackburn.
I don't know what. This is how I talk normally, James.
Oh, God, you sound a bit like Chris. That's crazy.
Our friend Chris, no one knows what he sounds like.
Oh, man.
So he sounds like one of the Beatles. But anyway, Super Smash Bros. Melee for the GameCube. Make sure you pick it up and give it a play because we're going to be talking about that next week. And that's goodbye from me, Jack Marshall. Goodbye from Anthony Hobday.
Goodbye.
Goodbye from Roseanne Fisher.
Bye.
And goodbye from James McFadden.
If you have a problem with any of the things I've said about Emma Stone in this podcast, shut up.